City, Brandon Ayuk was great. KNBR, San Francisco, take it away.
Garoppolo in the shotgun looking left, throws for Ayuk. Ayuk will take it down, break a tackle and get in the end zone. Touchdown! San Francisco! Ayuk is on fire!
Oh, no.
I like it. We don't need no water. Even I know that one. All right. The Niners have reeled off 3 straight wins. They're 6-4. They're 3-1 since they got Christian McCaffrey. And I opened the show by saying this is a team we might well see in the Super Bowl. The San Francisco 49ers. Meanwhile, the Green Bay Packers are not. Aaron Rodgers and the Packers lost to the Titans last week. At this point, they're just playing out the string. They've lost 6 out of 7. They're 4-7. They're third place in the NFC North right now and headed in the wrong direction. Our analytics give them just a 5% chance to make the playoffs. Green Bay entered the year with the highest playoff chance of any team at the exact inverse. Look at that. They had a 95% chance. Now they have a 5% chance. We can spend, and we have spent much of our season trying to figure out how they went from one of those 2 places to the other. But that's where they find themselves. So here's my question for you, Dominic Foxworth. As we consider the immediate future of the Green Bay Packers in a division where the Bears feel like they are ascending with a really good young quarterback and a ton of draft capital and a ton of money to spend. The Lions feel like they're coming on. They have a good young player that's going to come back and join them now, the receiver out of Alabama. They've got a couple of very high draft picks. The Vikings are already one of the best teams. Do you believe that Rodgers and the Packers should want to consider separating at the end of this season for the better of both sides? Neek?
Absolutely not. I mean, I think if the big question was they need a receiver, it seems like Watson is turning into something that they can rely on. They still have a ton of talent on defense and some great running backs. In my view, they still have the best roster headed into next season of anybody in that division. We all know that the Vikings aren't as good as their record shows. The Bears have a quarterback that's on the ascent, but he's not quite where he needs to be yet, and they have a lot of other holes. And also the Lions, their defense is not good, and I'm not sure that the draft picks are going to solve that. So if I had to pick one of these teams to win next year's division, it's the Packers behind a little bit worse Aaron Rodgers with an improving receiving core over any of the rest of those teams, unfortunately.
Okay, so you and I may not see that the same way. Let's live in a world, however, where at least the consideration of a change was being made. We know the contract.
Yeah.
Can it be done? In simple layman's terms, if both sides wanted a trade, could they do it?
They could, yes. The way the contract is structured with the option bonus, they don't have to pick it up until almost the regular season, start of the 2023 year. Yes, you could trade him. You take a big dead money cap hit of $40 million. It goes down if you wait till after June 1st. A lot of wheels in motion there. But you could do it if he insisted and you decided to move on and you were willing to eat the dead money. I just don't think that's the most likely outcome. I think that this decision was made in March when he decided to come back and they signed him to a contract that's going to pay him almost $60 million next year. Mm-hmm. So I think the most likely outcome here is that he's back in Green Bay. It's possible he could decide to retire. That's always a possibility and will continue to be with him. But I don't think, you could do it, yes, but I don't think that's the most likely outcome.
That was a decision that was made when we thought they had a 95% chance of making the playoffs. And here we are 90% in the other direction later. Things can change.
But to Dominique's point, you have to assess what next year looks like. I mean, if you feel good about your roster, you feel like this year obviously didn't go the way you wanted it to, but next year can be different, then you run it back with your star quarterback.
But Greedy, if you listen to Graz's words, he committed to coming back in March, but he didn't show up until training camp. And when you have a young roster of players, it's consequential, and it's played out that way. Christian Watson's gotten better. Romeo Doubs has been inconsistent with injuries, but the point is, if they want to have their best chance to be successful, if Aaron Rodgers wants to come back next year, you have to work with your young skill players much earlier.
Dominic, he's right. I know you hate it. You're going to yell and scream at him and all that, but he's 100% right. Rodgers, this year, and look, I mean, Rodgers has done so many things right in his career. He's one of the greatest players of all time. But this sort of half in, half out attitude that he's taken the last couple of seasons has really wound up hurting hurting this team, and I believe that's part of it. Go ahead, Nate.
Well, I mean, if you're saying half in, half out about the contract negotiations, whether you come back or not, that's fine. Maybe you could say that, but that's his right to do that. And if he shows up for the things that he's contracted to show up for, like, I feel like it's absurd to start putting pressure on him and blame him for the season. Maybe the coaches should do their job and coach. Like, I'm not implying that they aren't, but like, it's not Aaron Rodgers' job to get everybody else ready. And possibly it's important for some people to get away. And Aaron Rodgers seemed like someone who has a lot on his mind and a lot going on. And him at his best is someone who has a proper break. So assuming that the solution to fix everything is more football, I think is wrong. It's a faulty assumption, and it's unfair to any of the players, no matter what position they play or how much you're paying them.
So at the end of the day, Graziano, the likeliest scenario in your mind is that Rodgers is back as the starting quarterback of the Green Bay Packers next year, week 1, and Jordan Love, the future is just completely uncertain.
I believe that's the likeliest scenario. With this disclaimer, I have no idea what Aaron Rodgers is going to want to do.
And neither does anybody else. And no one is quite sure if he does either. So we'll leave that there for the moment. In the meanwhile, we have to just blast Hembo over here. Okay, come on, Graziano.
Let's go.
So Sneaky Hembo has now descended to a level because he's such an incredibly small human being.
Pure desperation, right?
That he can't stump Graziano, who is an NFL expert and insider. He can't stump him on a pro football question, so he's got to throw up a college question.
This is what he does when he gets desperate. He's done it before. I know his playbook.
You didn't have a World Cup question handy over there?
I get you on World Cup.
What's the matter with him? Anyway. So Michigan and Ohio State, big game this weekend. 12th time, they're both top 5. I hope you get this right.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to.
What is the second most common top 5 matchup?
I don't know. Tannenbaum has some good guesses, right? It's got to be teams that have been great for a long time, that play all the time. He was giving me like USC, Notre Dame. It's a good guess. My first instinct, and I want to go back to my first instinct because I got talked out of it last week and lost when I should have won, was to say Oklahoma, Nebraska, because they used to be 1 and 2 all the time. And
it's so close. They're third. Texas, Oklahoma is the answer.
All right. Yeah, it's not bad. I'm off by 2 games.
No, you were very close.
Bad. I'll take it.
There's no way I'm putting that on the standings.
I feel pretty good about that.
Do not put the standings up. Change. There's no way that counts for Hembo. No way. That is an absolutely disgraceful act. He should be ashamed of himself. Frankly, his newborn twins should be ashamed of him.
He doesn't look ashamed of himself.
No. All right. They're insisting that this one counts. We're going to have a meeting after the show. Meanwhile, let's talk about the games this weekend, okay? Because we had a couple of CFP hopefuls that had some close calls last weekend. Number 3, Michigan needed a last-second field goal against Illinois, 9 seconds to be exact. They find a way to win, so they go to Columbus. They haven't won there since 2000, but they go in unbeaten. TCU also needed an unbelievable scramble drill at the end to kick a field goal in walk-off fashion and get themselves to 11-0. The Horned Frogs will be Big 12 champs and almost certainly earn their first playoff experience if they win 2 more. Tennessee, however, it went completely the other way. At South Carolina, they allowed their most points in over 80 years, and they lost their Heisman contending quarterback Hendon Hooker to a torn ACL. Just brutal. And so as we prepare for tonight's rankings, here they are, Heather and Paul, who bring us our insight every single week. So obviously, as Tennessee goes down, that helps a lot of teams. Let's start with you, Heather. Who was the biggest beneficiary of Tennessee getting knocked out of the conversation?
USC, Greeny, they could be number 5 tonight. I think they have a great chance at that. And they're 2 wins away from serious consideration for the 4th spot on Selection Day. If they beat Notre Dame and they beat a ranked opponent in the Pac-12 Conference Championship game, then I think that they have an excellent chance of getting in. Here's a sneaky Hembo stat for you. 26 teams in the college football playoff era have finished their conference championship game with 1 or fewer losses, and only one of those teams, 2018 Ohio State, did not get into the college football playoff. So history is on USC's side if they run the table.
All right, so there's one option. Paul, who else? Who else might be a beneficiary of Tennessee getting knocked out?
Well, I think it's the Michigan-Ohio State loser, especially if it's Ohio State. They have a better schedule. And even though the game is at home, if that's a 1-point game, a field goal like we saw last week, they are in pretty good shape. After that, Greeny, I'm not really sure there is another beneficiary. Maybe TCU should the Horned Frogs lose in their conference championship game. Some people have brought up Clemson I think that's laughable, the idea that Clemson could work its way back into there. They've really done nothing all year. Their conference championship game against North Carolina has already been dinged by North Carolina losing to an absolutely woeful Georgia Tech team. So I think we're really talking about two schools here, Southern Cal and the loser of the big game Saturday.
Okay, I like it. And with that thought in mind, Heather, if I asked you which team has emerged as the biggest X factor in all of this, you've been saying this all year. Who is it?
Notre Dame, the team that lost to Marshall. This is amazing. But Notre Dame could single-handedly knock out USC in the entire Pac-12 conference if they win that game. And Clemson got hammered by Notre Dame. So that's going to impact the selection committee's view of Clemson if they finish as a one-loss conference champ. And Ohio State, to Paul's point, if they don't beat Michigan, they're going to be clinging on to their win against Notre Dame in the season opener with the hopes that that's enough to impress the selection committee without winning the Big Ten East. So that is 3 college football playoff contenders that Notre Dame could potentially impact in the committee meeting room on Sunday. It's amazing.
Well, if you think about it, yeah, the win that Ohio State has over Notre Dame will look all the better if Notre Dame winds up beating USC at the finish here. So it's amazing how these games that were played basically in August still wind up having an enormous impact. And then how about in your beloved SEC, Paul, where obviously the loss of Tennessee takes a team out. It's not Alabama's year. Georgia in the mix there. How does the Michigan-Ohio State game inform what winds up happening to Georgia, LSU, any of the other SEC hopefuls?
I think what it really shows is this is about the only school that could beat Georgia, and I'm talking about the winner of Michigan-Ohio State. TCU, I know we had our fun with them last week. They're a very good team. If they get in the playoffs, congratulations. They'll still lose by 3 or 4 touchdowns in the semifinals. And Southern Cal has had a phenomenal season. Caleb Williams may very well win the Heisman Trophy, but I don't think the Southern Cal defense can stand up to Georgia or Michigan/Ohio State. I think we're really talking about 2 schools remaining in my mind, actually 3, 2 playing in the game Saturday, that could possibly win the national championship.
So to be clear, that's Georgia, that's Ohio State, that's Michigan, and for you, it ends there, Paul?
It ends there, and Heather, I'm all ears, plenty of ears here to listen to if you have another school that could possibly crash the party.
No, I think those are good picks, but I will say this about USC's defense. Those turnovers that they got in that game, I mean, Thompson Robinson had 3 picks in that game, and the defense at the end of the day is the one that sealed it, and their turnover margin is the one thing that might give Georgia a little bit of an issue.
Paul, here's my question. If I get Michigan, Ohio State, and USC, can I claim 3 Big Ten teams? Because USC, they're not ours yet, but they're going to be. Can I claim 3 Big Ten teams if USC gets in?
I think you can, Greeny, because Southern Cal, in my mind, is a Big Ten team as of today, as of your statement right there.
Absolutely. We claim them. If those 3 get in, then the Big Ten has 3 teams in the playoff. Tonight, we will get the exclusive reveal of this week's rankings, and as you just heard, they will be critical. Reese and the crew breaking them down top to bottom. Starts 7 Eastern.